Talk about being frightened. Hi, I've been in healthcare for 50 years. And of those 50 years, 25 years of that have been as an entrepreneur. I started 7 companies in the United States and in Canada. And what I'm going to talk to you about today are the fact that I have a doctorate in organizational leadership from Pepperdine. And so I want you to remember that woman who spoke to us about the quick part of the brain, thinking fast. So I'm about to ask you 9 questions as physicians that I want you to just pick the answer. There is no right or wrong answer. This was created by a physician for fellow physicians who wanted to be entrepreneurs. So the first question is understanding the yeah, but. The second question is listen to yourself and not the man. Actually, having been a CEO of a hospital, I know what the man is. Learn how to keep on selling. Stop thinking in straight lines. Think in broader terms. I can't even read this. Skip the time and expense of an MBA. Just go out and sell something. Stop waiting about how bad it is and go out and change your life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Fail and fail again. Know what it feels like and you won't fail as often. Stop whining about how bad it is and go change your own life. Feel that it's like to change, don't just think about it. And finally, stop working for the man, just stop already. So these are the 4 things that I want you to keep in your mind as you listen to the rest of the presentation. The rest of the presentation I'm going to present to you are 3 ideas that you can go home tomorrow and start doing. So this is not some long-term, think of something, go out and do it. I'm going to give you 3 possibilities that you can go home tomorrow and do. Come on, you can change. The first is a company called MedVector, as one I'm a co-founder with, and my co-founders here in the audience. And what we are doing is that we are going to be the lift between clinical trials and the pharmacy companies and their principal investigators to find them through a database with our hospitals, all the subjects they need in 2 months versus years. In 2000, there were 4,000 clinical trials. There are now 260,000 clinical trials. The FDA's approval rate has not changed. The fact of the matter is 11% of clinical trials never get started for lack of subjects, and 33 can't take place in the first year because of a lack of subjects. We are using medications that are 10 years old after they were discovered. Tomorrow, when you go back, you can either watch the newspaper or look at the ads or go to your local teaching hospital and say, what are you looking for in subjects? And go back to your medical record and find those patients and see if they're willing to be subjects and offer them as subjects to the hospital where you can actually be a consultation fee in order to do that. So that's my first idea for something that you could do. By the way, we'll be in the market next year and then you can come to us. Secondly, and this is something that I've learned through VSee, which has a contract with MedVector to get all that information from our partner hospitals around the country, is that they were approached by a orthopedic surgeon in Alabama who had 11,000 cases. And he went to a hospital that was tenant in Alabama and said, I want a fixed price contract. I want you to bundle everything, and I will bundle all of my fees into a fixed price contract, and I am going to go after all the employees in the state of Alabama and their families. And so that's what he's doing. He's gone out, he's bundled everything, and so he's going after a self-insured union in Alabama. In California, if you practice in California, there are over 3,000 self-insured employers. And they have 4 million lives under care, 4 million workers under care, and 4 million really, and just multiply that by 4, and that's how many people are out there that you can actually contract with and get to. The third idea I have for you is that there are firms, private equity firms, that are out there buying all the hospitals that CMS, Tenet, and others are dropping. And they have no idea what they're buying. So they do all the financials, they run the numbers, they run the cash, they look at the balance sheet, they do all kinds of projections, but they are buying not a parking garage, they're buying a hospital. And the hospital's success is based on its clinical excellence. So the fact of the matter is, you can actually help that firm go in and look at the things that you can do. So basically, there were something like 106 hospitals mergers are bought in 2016. And the fact of the matter is, of those bought, they had no idea what to do. So the first thing is to really help them do a clinical due diligence. You can look at profitability by physicians. You can look at, are there ways through their coding that they can make more money? You can look at the fact that the clinical variation and how it affects the profitability of that hospital. Physicians actually have completely broad variation in all their practices, treating the same patients acutely adjusted in a hospital. And finally, helping them get them out of the emergency room and into the hospital faster, because a lot of times you use up all your DRG costs before they get outside the emergency room. Another recommendation I make is find a coach. So this is a gentleman who is a very famous physician, and he's done a 16-minute video, which Milton won't let me show you because I only have 10 minutes. But I have given you the place to go. And what he found as a surgeon is that when he went out, he found that he had leveled off in his improvement for healthcare for his surgical patients. And he went out and found a coach who was his old professor. And he found all of a sudden that he was improving and improving and improving. He now is using that to teach third world nurses in terms of midwife delivery, of how to coach them to use proper sterile techniques in order to have healthier deliveries. Why should you do this? Physicians, you are the heart of hospitals. It's not the executives, it's not the executive suite. The physician is the heart of the hospital. And here are some disturbing things I have found in my 50 years in healthcare around the world. One is a study by the Commonwealth Fund of the G11 shows that we rank last in terms of access, in terms of outcome. If you go to cms.gov, you will find that this year we are going to use 18.2% of our gross domestic product for healthcare, which means that in the third case, we have made our companies really not competitive on an international market, because Britain uses 10% on its gross domestic product to provide the same thing as this company, a book that I would encourage you to read, which is A Corporation to Save Healthcare. Here's a self-insured gentleman who's paying more for healthcare than he was for the supplies to make dials for cars. And he says, I don't compete in the United States, I compete on an international market. So we will eventually, if this doesn't change, use up everything of our gross domestic product to provide healthcare. And the biggest item in healthcare is the acute care section. So what I've provided you in my last slide is some of the things that you have websites you can do. And I'm going to ask you to join the Dennis Patterson revolution in healthcare. I've been in healthcare for 50 years. I have not ever seen the drop of the gross domestic product in the use of healthcare costs. And I don't think God's going to allow me another 30 years to wait. So if you can help me change this revolution, because revolution only occurs from the outside. It doesn't occur from the establishment. It happened in the French Revolution, it happened by the Tsar's Revolution, and it happened in the American Revolution. And if you'll help me do this, I really would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
That's great. Thank you so much. Any questions? I say this is a phenomenal resource for, I know a lot of physicians thinking about creating their own companies or even just expanding their practice. This is really like literally it's a gold mine of wisdom to tap into.
Yes, sir.
So a physician who's been an employed physician for many years, going into a company is scary stuff. Are there resources available nationally which can guide clinicians how to start businesses? What is an S corporation? What is a C corporate? I mean, they didn't teach us this in medical school. We are learning as we go along.
No, that's where I got to the coaching. That's what's important. If you go out and find an entrepreneur in your community, he'd be more than happy, or she'll be more than happy to be your coach. And we'll have those skills in order to take you through a lot of that. The second thing and this is a discovery that we made in MedVector that I never knew. In LA, there is actually an association of physician entrepreneurs. So I would check your local community, and there's a national association of physician entrepreneurs. So I think that would be the first resource that I would go to see if there's a local chapter you can get involved in.
Thank you.
Well, I had a comment about the self-insure issue and the company in California. I agree. So since we are service for our community, and we notice the high demanding for the cut down the middleman's cost and give the quality to the patient, whoever pay the money, and give the doctor who provided the service. Now I think everybody here, we screwed out by the Blue Cross Blue Shield terrible bad. And so we working so hard, the patient pays so high as the monthly pay, and doctor get a pay like a penny. Yeah, those middle guys sucked out all of the money. I would say probably at the least 60 to 70%. So really the money is spent like a very penny to the doctor, whoever really take care of the patient. Now we also, as a physician, right now at this point, in the audience here, so lots of providers, and also we stand with you together. While we just working together and go to the direction, take down this middle guy. We have a high tech, we have the technique available. We don't need this middle guy in there. Yeah.
Agreed. But that's why I've asked you to join my revolution.
One quick question. What prompted you to move from being a physician to an entrepreneur 25 years ago?
Basically, I was a hospital executive. I'm not a physician, I'm a hospital executive. And I have a doctorate, but he gave me a big raise, and so I took it. So basically what happened is I was a very young man, and I've been in healthcare so long that I immediately became an executive of the largest teaching hospital in Western Canada. And after 9 years there, I worked myself out of a job creating a shared service organization. And when I interviewed around Vancouver and British Columbia, I found that they wanted me to do the same thing and pay me more money, which made no sense to me. And so that's when I dropped out and formed my first company called WestCare. And in Canada, the government can take over your hospital and can dismiss your board. And so I made a consulting firm that was a consulting firm of last resort. If you hired us and I came in as your executive to straighten that around, the minister wouldn't step in, but if you didn't, he would. So it was a very nice model.
Maybe a last question.
So again, great presentation. So I'm a physician myself. It's been struggle for the last 8 years. I found my ways to become a physician entrepreneur, found my space. I was a hospitalist, medical director, I have my own company, got the contract, went to post-acute care. So it's very difficult to find that space in the bigger markets, where the bigger healthcare systems are there. So they give you limited space. As soon as they find you growing, then that's a difficult space at that time. So for a physician, like you are in the leadership roles, So how we can manage that space and still keep moving, and now you have a competition with bigger systems, and they don't want you to grow in that space.
I think I'd go back to my very first slide as an opportunity. we have found across the country that physician practices, and I don't know if you're solo or in a practice, but if you're in a practice, what we have found that people who are doing clinical trials using their patient base at this time are making more money off of clinical trials than they all are of seeing patients. So it's a very lucrative, if you think about it, and I hate these, but the television commercials, the ads in the newspaper, the billboards trying to get patients, and the FDA has not approved any more drugs, even though we're at a $65 billion company now in terms of doing clinical trials. And the fact of the matter is the FDA has even said to us, by the way, you are not recruiting in your clinical trials America. The people that are responding are not a cross-section of Americans. They are usually white, and they're usually fairly well educated. And the FDA says, we let this pass because you'd only find 200, but we want this to be a safe drug for America.
Thank you so much there. Again, so Dennis, we're sitting right there. Definitely grab you during the break and just chat with you.